I predict that in this lecture we will be looking at predicting the future. Just over 400 years ago, a man called Nostradamus made a prediction about this year. In fact, he predicted that this year the world would end. But it didn't. In fact, we would have been surprised if it had. In fact, we wouldn't have been here. But there was another prediction also made concerning this year, and that had to do with the planets. In fact, it was a prediction based on the movement of the Earth around the Sun. It was a prediction that there would be an eclipse. And that did happen. And we would have been surprised if it hadn't. In fact, we'd have been very annoyed, because some of us booked hotel rooms. And that's the subject of this lecture. How can we predict the future? What is predictable about the future? Will some things always be a surprise? Or is there some element of predictability in nature? And we'll also see that by being a little bit unpredictable ourselves, we can help ourselves stay alive. Now, being able to predict things will be quite useful. Many of us have been stuck in traffic and wish that we weren't, and wish that we could predict not only the traffic, but the weather in the place we were going. And even financial markets. That would be a wonderful thing to be able to predict. Well, 200 years ago, when the Royal Institution was founded, everybody thought the universe ran like a well-oiled clock. A little bit like these toys. Marvelous. And a bit like a pendulum. That's a reliable thing. Swings backwards and forwards. We know that another swing is due. We can predict what this thing's going to do. And a bit like the swinging of planets around the sun, like the eclipse. Even like trying to predict a bus. Buses come along, say, every 20 minutes. If you've been waiting 10 minutes, you know that in a few minutes, well, you're more than likely to have a bus come along. So we use this type of prediction all the time. But other things, very simple things, like a coin, seem very unpredictable. Heads or tails? Tails. Could have been heads, though. So what is it that makes some things predictable and some things unpredictable? Well, to answer this, we have to go on a journey from order and predictability through to chaos and unpredictability. Like a volunteer. Your name is? Tim. Just stand there, please, Tim. So, Tim, what we're going to do, we have this pendulum that swings backwards and forwards, very predictable. I'm going to connect another pendulum on the bottom. So could you come down here and just connect this on?
Sure.
Just put that wing nut on. That's it. Great. So Tim, stand back, hold on to the end of the pendulum, and let it go. Okay, what Tim did, just connected one pendulum on the bottom of another. And now you see, well, it's certainly not as regular as before. In fact, it's beginning to look a bit unpredictable. So I'll just try and catch this. Now we're going to connect another couple of pendulums with a bar. Tim, could you come and connect these? That's it. Well, what do you think, Tim? Think he deserves a head? Okay, see what you can do, letting it go from even higher. Oh. He seems to be enjoying it. That is very unpredictable. Thank you very much, Tim. So what we've seen, we've connected together 1, 2, 3 pendulums. The more we connected together, the more unpredictable things became. The harder it was to predict what was going to happen to any one of these pendulums. But how does this fit into our picture of the clockwork universe? After all, there we have 2, 3, 4, 5 planets. And they're all going around the same sun. Well, this was the question that the King of Sweden wanted to address about 100 years ago. He was interested in knowing, well, what's going to happen to the planets that are going around the sun? Knowing what we know today, what position will they be in a year, 2 years, 10 years, 200 years' time? Now, people had Newton's laws. So they thought, Newton's laws, Newton's equations, all we have to do is solve them. We can solve them for 2 planets, quite easy. 3 planets must be, well, a little bit harder, but surely with a big enough calculator you could do it. So given that the King of Sweden had put up some prize money, a lot of people started to really have a go at this calculation, to work out what all of the planets will be doing in a year's time. But they found the calculation very hard. In fact, it became apparent that it was practically impossible. And that was the situation. Nobody collecting the prize money, nobody knowing what would happen to the planets. Until this man came along. This is Henri Poincaré, French mathematician. Now, Poincaré wasn't very good at school. He got 0 in drawing. But he was actually really quite good at maths. And he decided, instead of trying to solve Newton's equations for a year's time, 10 years' time, that he'd take a step back and look at the problem in a slightly different way. He realized that what the King of Sweden was really asking was, is the solar system going to remain stable? Are the planets going to remain stable around the sun? That was the important information to get out of the problem. Because he realized that although everybody thought that the universe was behaving in a regular clockwork way, very much like this orrery, which is based on clockwork mechanisms showing planets going around the sun. He realized that things weren't as simple as that. Did a lot of mathematics, quite complicated mathematics, to actually then show that Newton's equations couldn't be easily solved, and that the only thing you could really say about the problem and about the solar system was that it would be stable. But actually, that was enough. That's all the King of Sweden needed to know. So he won the money. But he also changed our view of what it means to make a useful prediction of what kind of things you want to predict. You don't really want to be predicting exactly what's going to happen to all of the planets in 10 years' time. What you really want to know is, are they still going around, and are they still going around the sun? But he also discovered what was wrong with everybody else's approach to the same problem. And to show you what Poincaré demonstrated, I need a volunteer. Could you come down? And your name is?
Edmund.
Edmund. Could you stand there, please, Edmund? Just stand over here against the desk, face over there. Now, Edmund, we've both got pendulums here. So what I want you to do is come a little bit closer, left hand. Just hold that pendulum above that red dot. We've got exactly the same pendulums, and we're going to put them over the same position of this card. And I'm going to count down from 3 and say now. When I say now, just release the pendulum. Okay? 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so we both set off our pendulums at the same time. They're going in the same direction. Same pendulums. But I think you can clearly see that they're certainly not doing the same thing now, are they, Edmund? No, they're not. Thank you very much, Edmund. So what Edmund helped me to show is what Poincaré said, is that even though you think you've got exactly the same starting conditions for these two pendulums, they rapidly diverge, they rapidly differ in what they actually do. And the important consequence for the calculation of the planets in the solar system is that you can never exactly know the position of the planets. And so any small error will build up over time, and quickly your predictions will become inaccurate. You may actually have heard of this kind of effect. It's called a butterfly effect. Actually, that's another name just for chaos theory. And it's the idea that very small changes can have dramatic consequences in the future. Very much like a butterfly, say, flapping its wings in Singapore, will affect the weather on New Year's Day for the new millennium here in Britain. Well, I hope we don't get any of that. So is that it? We should just end the lecture. Things become unpredictable when there are more parts to them, or when there's some kind of outside influence, like with the magnetic pendulums. We can never hope to predict anything. Chaos theory rules. Things are either very regular, like a pendulum, or completely irregular and unpredictable. Well, that can't be right. After all, we're sitting here in a reasonably ordered way. Our lives are reasonably ordered. There's life on Earth. That's something reasonably ordered. So it can't be that nature just lives in a completely regular or completely irregular state. So that's what we've got to investigate. How can order arise? Where does nature actually live with respect to this order and disorder, this predictability and complete unpredictability? For this, I need a volunteer. Come down. Your name is?
Danny.
Danny. Just stand here, please, Danny. Danny, we're going to do some balancing. Okay? What I'd like you to do is just try and make this stick stand up on the desk. Oops. It's a bit unfair on you, because I've never been able to do it. In fact, I don't think it's possible. Okay, stand there. Now what I'd like you to do, instead of standing it up on the desk, where it could have fallen all over the place and it was really hard to actually know what would happen to it, I want you to try and support it with your hand and see if you can now make it stand up. Well, let's have another go. Yes, that's better. Yes, well done. Okay, well done. Well, you're so good at that. Make you have a go with 2, Danny. So just try, that's it, hold this up. I'll try and help you. Whoops. No, doesn't look like it's going to work, does it? So I guess 3's out of the question?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, thanks very much, Danny. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's out of the question. There's no way you could expect to make these stand up, to put some order into these rods. In fact, let's just imagine that. I haven't got more than 3 rods here. But let's imagine I had a whole bunch of them, they're really quite small, and I connected them together. It seems impossible that I should be able to make them stand up in my hand. In fact, here we've got a little bit of curtain wire, which is, you can think of as very many rods connected all together. And I don't think there's any way I'll be able to do it. Well, maybe I'm just not supplying energy in the right way. Maybe I'm not affecting the system in the right way. So instead of having my hand ache while I try to make this stand up, what we have over here is actually a motor. It will do the same job as my hand. Actually supply energy, and it actually vibrates up and down. So now let's see what happens with this. It works. Take the energy out, and down it goes. Now, somehow there was order being created because of the supply of energy from the outside. So we need to understand something about this order, how it's created in time, what kind of patterns and order can emerge when energy is supplied. Turns out that the person who started these Christmas lectures, Michael Faraday, was actually the first person to investigate the patterns that emerged when a system was held out of equilibrium, in other words, when energy was supplied to it. He was more interested in motors, electric motors. But here we have a piece of equipment which will demonstrate what he found. Instead of using a motor, I'm actually going to bow this plate, which has sand on it. And we'll see what happens. So again, I'm supplying energy, and we'll see what happens. You can see a pattern emerges. So nobody told these grains of sand what to do, but they formed a pattern. Now, such patterns are not unfamiliar to us, particularly in sand. For example, if we think of a flat beach without any wind, well, we wouldn't expect to see much other than a flat beach. But in the desert, where there's a lot of wind, on a windy day on a beach, we know that patterns form in sand. Now, the wind's blowing all over the place, but it creates patterns. Somehow, the sand organizes itself. Order emerges out of apparent chaos. So we need to understand better how these patterns form in time. Now over here we've got a drum. It's got two types of grains in it. At the moment it looks very disorganized. There's no particular pattern we can see. Now I'm going to turn on a motor. It's actually going to rotate this drum. And as it turns, just like the grains of sand, the grains will fall. In fact, you can actually almost see a pattern starting to emerge. Well, we'll come back to this. We'll give it time to organize itself. But while we're doing that, we're going to look a bit closer at sand itself. And I need a volunteer. Would you come down? And your name is?
Emilia.
Emilia. Any good at construction, Emilia?
I'm doing resistance material.
Right, well, that's good enough. That's fine. Well, what we've got here is a dumper truck containing sand. And what I want you to do is just turn this handle slowly. I'm going to see what happens to the sand. Obviously, at the moment, as you turn it, that's fine. Keep going, Emilia. The sand's all on the back of the dumper truck. Nothing's moving. It's kind of dead. There are no patterns, nothing. Obviously, if Emilia turned it very high, all the sand would fall off. But what we're interested in is what happens in between. Keep going, a little bit faster. So we're now getting towards the moment when we expect a little bit of movement in the sand. You can see a few grains starting to move. That's it. Keep going. Now a bit slower now. That's it. That's it. Keep going. Because what Emilia's got to do now, of course, is keep increasing the slope. Whoops, that's it. A bit slower, a bit slower, a bit slower. That's it. That's it. Slower, slower. That's it. And what you can see now, just stop for a moment, is that there are movements of all sizes. Actually, avalanches of all sizes. We're in this kind of critical moment between no movement and having all the sand just drop down here. Could you keep turning just very slowly? And you can see little rivers form, and there are tiny movements and large movements. But actually, nothing's actually causing the large movements. Somehow, the whole thing's connected. It all kind of feeds back on itself. And these patterns just fall. That's great. Thanks very much, Emilia. And in fact, there was no typical time. If we'd been looking for a particular avalanche and asking the question, well, when's an avalanche of a certain size going to happen? There's actually no particular time. It's not like a bus that a certain avalanche is due. Let's look at our mixed grains and see how they're getting on. And you see, they're now forming a nice pattern. Now, nobody told these grains what pattern to form. They're just doing it. And it's by studying sand and granular material like this that scientists have actually had some clues and insights into what this critical state is. And one of the first people to do this was actually this man, Pierre de Gennes. Now, Pierre de Gennes got interested in sand because he was in the French Navy. But actually, he was in the French Navy, but they posted him in the desert, and that's where he first noticed these patterns forming in sand. Very much like these. So nature forms patterns. For some reason, it likes to. So if nature forms patterns in sand, and it forms it in these grains, and we could form order and some kind of structure in this rod, maybe the same thing happens in us. And that's what we're going to investigate. We have a machine here that detects heartbeats. Now, we think of the heart as the most regular thing in us. It's like a regular clock. It's a regular heartbeat, and that's what you have when you're healthy. Now, we have a volunteer over here who's already wired up and has agreed to have his heart monitored on this machine. Take a seat. Your name is?
William.
William. So William, we're just plugging you in. What I'm going to do is just start to record William's heartbeat. Looks fairly regular to me. Very good. Okay. Now, William, I want you to help me analyse your own heartbeat. So what we're going to do, I'm going to rip this off. If you could just unplug yourself and come around the other side of the desk. Right, come around here. Come around here, William. What we're going to do is we're just going to measure the time interval between William's heartbeat. We're actually going to measure it as a distance on here because that's what the trace gives us. So, William, can you just read off the interval between your heartbeat here? This first one, we're going from peak to peak. What's it? About 20? 28 millimeters. Right, 28 millimeters along here. Next one.
28.
Right. Next one.
Yeah. 27.
27 now. This one.
27.
27. This one.
About 29.
29. This one.
27.
27. Okay. Thanks very much, William. Thanks for volunteering. You go and sit down. So they're all around 27, 28, 29. That's what we'd expect. But that's the exciting thing that scientists have just found out. That actually there's an irregularity in the heart, in the healthy heart. So William shouldn't be worried at all. This is very good. 27, 28, 29, 27, it's these irregularities that actually characterize a healthy heart. In fact, scientists have found out that it's when the heart gets too regular that there are actually possible problems. And it's not just with the heart. It seems that, for example, in the brain rhythms, in a healthy sleeping patient, they have an irregularity that goes away for a coma victim. But why would the heart want to do that? What's the advantage? Because it does it itself. Unlike we had to drive this motor at a certain frequency, we had to rotate this at a certain rate, the heart kind of finds itself in this position itself. Nature likes it between complete order, complete chaos. Well, first of all, how does it get there? Well, with the heart, there are many body clocks. There are regular contractions of muscles. There are physiological chemical clocks. And all of these are working together or competing at the same time. Now, they feed off each other. There's a kind of feedback between them. But the body, by not relying on any one particular clock, it seems, scientists think at the moment, that actually this is an advantage because it makes the heart more adaptable, kind of self-organizes itself and kind of controls itself without any outside overall clock determining the rate of beating. So there's a kind of advantage in not being too regular and being slightly unpredictable. Actually, this is interesting because we think of health as order and illness as disorder. And so it's beginning to open questions about exactly what we mean by order and disorder in terms of health. It's not just in the body as well. It also seems that in things that we like in the arts, we like things that are slightly irregular. Take, for example, music. Turns out that if you look at, for example, a piece of Bach, and you look at the patterns in time in the music, that they follow very similar mathematics to the mathematics that describes, for example, the sand, the avalanches in the sand, or the irregularities in the heart. It seems that we almost like music that kind of reflects nature, the kind of maths that's in nature. We seem to kind of like that. And it actually makes sense, because if music's too ordered, of course, it's boring. If it's too disordered, we somehow can't connect to it. And it's this middle ground, this kind of edge of predictability that we find interesting. So it's also true in our daily behaviour. I mean, you wouldn't, if you go out and get the bus at 8 o'clock every morning, you know that you've got to be slightly adaptable. You don't just step out into the road at 8 o'clock every morning, hoping that there's a bus there. You know you have to adapt. So that's in terms of us as individuals. What about us as a group? This is an exciting new area of science, which is looking at the collective action of a group, of people. Well, one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture was a problem of traffic. Now, if you think about it, traffic and the flow of traffic along a road is actually very similar to the flow of sand. Sand's made up of grains, and they flow in a given direction. So is there any similarity between the two? Well, to investigate this, we need to look at some traffic, and I need a volunteer to help me. Could you come down? Your name is?
Dean.
Dean. Would you stand there? You're controlling the front end of a traffic jam, Dean. So we're going to set up our traffic jam here. What I want you to do is, when a car arrives at the back, just pull off the car at the front and pull it along the road. Okay, so first car coming in. Second car. Carry on. What you can see is the traffic jam moves backwards along the road. That's it. Okay, thanks very much, Dean. So traffic jams move backwards along a road. Now, we actually have some real traffic data here, taken from a section of the M25. Now, here we have the section between junction 10, junction 15. Cars flow in this direction along the road. And this is a snapshot of the traffic. Now, the dark regions are where the traffic is moving very slowly. So you can think of it as a traffic jam. And the light regions are where the traffic's moving reasonably quickly. So there's no traffic jam there. And this was taken at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, As time moves on, of course, we just saw traffic jams move on. And so if I slide this along, you can actually see, let's just take one traffic jam, it's black in the center here, you can actually see it move backwards along the road. Now, of course, no one driver has knowledge of what's happening on the whole road. But if we look at the pattern that's formed along the road for all time, we begin to see something that does indeed resemble some kind of pattern, not completely dissimilar from the patterns, the lines we're getting on these mixed grains that are rotating around there. And this pattern isn't completely regular, but it isn't completely irregular. If it was disordered, then the black and the white would be smeared out all over the place. They'd just be completely disorganized. But we can see some kind of ordering there. And it's understanding these kind of patterns and the realization that the patterns that occur in things like traffic are very similar to the patterns that occur in, for example, in sand and in many other things in nature, that's giving scientists an understanding about what happens in time in these systems. And that's the key then to giving some level of predictability about the future. But of course we're humans. We don't always behave rationally. We drive along, we don't necessarily make the most of the situation that arises. We carry on the road. We have limited information about what all the other drivers are doing, and we have choices. And it's these choices that I now want to look at. How do we make choices? I need 4 volunteers. Could I have you 4 here? No. No, you. And 1 more. You come down. Your name is?
Emma.
Emma. Come and stand over here, please, Emma. Your name is? Peter.
Fraser.
Fraser. Peter and Fraser over here, please. Peter, come around here, please. And your name is?
Louise.
Louise. So, Louise, if you stand there. Now, take up positions for arm wrestling. Now, I want you to listen carefully. The rules of this game, for which there is a reward, are the following. The winners of this game will be the ones that manage to touch the desk 6 times in the next, say, 20 seconds. That should be enough. Okay, are you ready? Go. Oh, I can hear some cracking of bones. Okay, carry on. Time's running out. Very good. You're still smiling. You're still smiling. Okay, that's it. That's it. Well done. Well done. You can go back to your seats. Well, unfortunately, nobody made it up to 6. But you could have done. It's actually quite easy. All I said was that the winners will be the ones that touch the desk 6 times. There's nothing to stop you all winning. So you see, when faced with limited information, in this case about our opponent, we don't always make the best choice. We tend to compete rather than cooperate. So if that's for two of us, in a one-on-one situation, what do we do as a group? I want to imagine you're going home every night, say from school, and you have a choice between two roads. Now, let's imagine you want to get home quickly from school, so you want to take the road that has less cars or bicycles on it, the less crowded road. So you're doing this every night, and so is everyone else. So you've got to try and second guess what everyone else is trying to do. Because if you make the same decision as everyone else, that will be the worst possible decision. In fact, there's no best strategy for forming a decision. Because if everybody used it, they'd all make the same decision. And it would be the worst strategy. So in this situation, we try and learn from the past. We try not to make the same mistakes as in the past. Did we win last night or the night before? What did we do? Well, maybe things have changed now. We all have different ways of processing exactly the same information. And we tend to look for patterns in what's happened before. Just as when we look at the moon, we tend to see a face, even though there's no face there. We like to make sense of information, to try and see some kind of pattern in it. Now, it's not just the case for travelling home that you want to try and be in the minority, say. Also in the case financial markets, there's another minority game. See all these people all getting quite excited about the information they're receiving and making decisions. And they're not all making the same decision. But in this case, as in the case with the road, it pays to be in a minority. Because it pays to be a buyer if everyone else is selling, or a seller if everyone else is buying. So in both of these cases, in the traffic and in the case of the financial markets, you want to be in a minority. But it's not always that way. Let's think about going to a party. Now in that case, it tends to be that we like to go to the party with the most people at it. We want to go with the majority. And even though there are two equally good parties, somebody always seems to lose out, and one party seems to dominate. Now, what I'm really interested in looking at is what happens if we make that decision over and over again, and we look at patterns in time of what have happened in the past, or our experience of the past, and we try and predict the future. So let's just see what exactly we do. I'd like 7 volunteers, please. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you could just come down, 7 of you, there, this region. 1, 2, 3. As long as there are 7 of you, it's okay. Need another 1. Would you like to come down? So let's stand. Your name is?
Vanessa.
Vanessa. Stand over here on this line, yellow line, facing inwards. Your name is?
Harriet.
Harriet. Come over here, please, next to Vanessa. Your name is?
Louis.
Louis. Come over here, please, Louis. Harriet. I'm just going to move you up and put Louis in between. Your name is?
Daniel.
Daniel. Come and stand here. And the other 3, just stand on the end there. On the white line, facing towards the desk, please. We're going to play a game. And the game we're going to play is the following. You have to make a decision. You have to make a choice between 2 colours. In front of you, there's a line that's red. Behind you, there's a line that's blue. And when you hear this sound, you have to jump. You have to jump to the line where the least number of people are. You're trying to get away from everyone else, okay? You don't want to jump where everyone else is. Everybody happy? There are prizes. So, let's just pretend that we've run it once and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people jumped to the red line and 2 people jumped to the blue line, so the blue ones won. Okay? Everybody ready? Okay, let's see what we have. 3 on blue, 4 on red, so blue wins. Back to the white line, please. 3 on blue, 4 on red. Sweets. Who won? Here we go again. Ready? Okay, 3 on red, 4 on blue. Remember, this is the pattern from the past. So the 3 reds win.
Yay.
Back to the white line, please. Okay, 3 on red, 4 on blue again. Prize to the reds. White line. 4 red, 5 red, 2 blues. I saw that. Where were the blues?
Me.
Back to the white line. Four reds, 3 blues. Reds. Blues, sorry, blues. Back to the white line. Red. Back to the white line. Okay, 2 reds, 5 blues. Do it once more. 2 win. White line. Two blues, 5 reds. Okay, just go back to the white line and stand there for a moment. What we see is in this minority game, very much like the traffic choosing between 2 routes, or the traders choosing to buy or sell, what we see is a progression in time, a pattern in time that doesn't really settle down. But it does kind of organize itself around this midpoint. So you're kind of organizing yourselves. Now we're going to play another game. In this case, you've got to be in the majority. You've got to go with the crowd, okay? And you're only going to win sweets if you all do the same thing. So, let's get you going. Let's imagine that last time blue was the majority. So blue was the winning decision. So, you ready? Majority, right? Go with the crowd. Oh! Back to the white line. I owe you all sweets. Remember that. Back to the white line. So we see a pattern emerging here. White line. White line. Okay, thanks very much. You can go back to your seats. Yes, I think it's the sweets. So this pattern doesn't look anything like the last one. And most importantly, neither of these two patterns look like what would happen if we tossed a coin. In fact, if everybody had a coin and they were tossing it to decide whether to jump to red, say if it was heads, and blue, say if it was tails, the pattern would have been quite different. What we're seeing here is a crowd effect. People are moving as a crowd. On the other hand, the coin, you see, has no memory. The crowd has a memory. That's why it locks into one result. Both red and blue are equally good. There's nothing wrong with either line. But one emerges as the winner for no real reason. Because there's memory in the system. That's the only reason. And we each have memory, and there's feedback between all of us. And somehow we act together. Unlike the coin that doesn't have any memory, can't remember the last heads or tails, and it acts independently every time you toss it. It's this understanding of how crowds behave that's actually important. Because everybody's acting individually with their own rules. Nobody's controlling the crowd. But for example, here, everybody managed to get across the bridge. Nobody tells them what speed to go at, but it's quite efficient the way in which everybody gets across. That's what people do. Animals have been doing this for a long time. In fact, ants are really good at doing this. Over here we have some food for these ants. The ant's house is over here. And they've got a couple of routes. And although there are some ants on this route, actually the crowd have actually found this route for some reason, maybe because it's wider, but it is a bit longer. But that doesn't matter. Ants, although they've got no walkie-talkies, there's no super ant telling them what to do, haven't got any radio broadcasts, they find a solution to the problem of getting food and taking it back to the nest. It may not be the best solution, but it is a solution, and they found it reasonably quickly. And this idea of how to organise and how organisation itself emerges in a population, almost like a kind of collective intelligence in a population, it's turning out to have great importance, not only for organising humans and understanding how ants work, but also even in arranging telephone networks. Telephone networks are very complicated. To have one computer that's controlling all of the data is really difficult. And if one part of the network goes down, the computer that controls it would have to contact all of the other data packets to tell them what to do. Far better to send each of these packets off like people or like ants with their own rules for deciding what to do. And let the system decide. The system self-organizes. In fact, not only with data packets, also with organizations of people. Left alone, they do quite well at organizing. Maybe some of you feel that that would be the best way to run your school. I'll leave that to you. So what we've seen is that nature likes it on the knife edge between order and chaos. And so do we. We actually thrive there. But on that knife edge, there are no typical timescales. There's no sense in which something is due, like the bus. So maybe we might even speculate that this lack of a certain period or a certain time that events are due in, given that we live our lives by a clock, is why we actually sometimes seem to kind of have conflict with such rigid timetables and structures and structuring of time itself. But of course the only way to understand really about the future is to travel into it. And that we'll be talking about in the next lecture. Thank you.